Hey guys, Andrew's here to talk about blacksmithing. I wanted to give a tutorial on everything from the most basic details to the more complicated stuff. It doesn't really get that complicated though, I'll be honest. It's really more about having some tact and strategy to it, and even that sounds like it's giving it too much credit. Let's start with the basic components of the skill. I'm just going to go over what the skill does and the milestones that it has. Blacksmithing allows you to repair your arms and armor as they become worn or damaged, as well as forge entirely new equipment. Every basic upgrade increases the effectiveness of repair kits. Now, repairing your gear can be very expensive, and trust me when I say that just buying a lot of repair kits is much more effective. Their maximum stack is 10, and because of that, if you buy every repair kit you find, they might start taking up some space in your inventory compared to how much you're using them. However, this can be easily counteracted by simply getting more of the backpacks. I'm going to be making a video about that in the near future. The locations of all the backpacks. There are 5 in total. They can be kind of hard to find if you don't know what to look for. Anyway, this can be very useful though because when your gear gets too damaged, it'll become broken when the durability hits 0. And when this happens, it effectively becomes useless until you can have it repaired. And like I said, getting shit repaired can be very expensive, especially later in the game. Now, the first milestone allows you to harvest components from the world. Basically, you can get it as drops from enemies, find it in chests. The milestone itself says from some enemies in the world, so I don't know, maybe you can already find it in chests. I'm playing as an Al main, though, and they have +2 to blacksmithing, so... or I believe they do, so I'm pretty sure I started off with these 2 already, so I wouldn't know. Second milestone, though, is you can use 3 components when crafting equipment. You can salvage infrequent equipment at level 3. Infrequent equipment is equipment with a green name. That is its rarity. A rarity that you cannot salvage is unique and set. Which is to say, part of a set. Those colors are purple and yellow. Unless they are from DLC, you cannot salvage those. The 4th milestone is you can use 4 components when crafting equipment. The 5th is that you can salvage rare equipment, blue rarity. The 6th is you can use components, gems as components, when crafting equipment. And lastly, you can create mastercrafted equipment. I'm not entirely sure what mastercrafted is. What I believe it is that prior to having it, you cannot salvage parts from gear that you made. Once it is mastercrafted, I believe that allows you to do so. I might be wrong about this, but prior to having the last milestone, I was never, ever able to salvage anything from my equipment, ever. But now I can. In fact, I recycle things from old equipment now, so that's pretty great. Now, I want to go over the basics of salvaging items, so let's open up the forge. Oh, let's quick save first, just ahead of time. So, when you salvage an item, you receive parts from that item, pretty much at random, things that make it up. It's a pretty simple concept. Let's take, for example, these sylvanite chassis. Okay, so I got some basic trim, some weak rivets, and an azurite brace, which is extremely weird because these were sylvanite. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before. This basic trim is a component that you can see it adds armor, and the weak rivets add health. Now, there is something to this, and I'll get to that in a minute. Once you have components that you've salvaged from items or found out in the world or bought or whatever, you can craft them into gear of any kind, any weapon, any kind of armor, all that, except for accessories. You cannot salvage or create accessories. Hopefully if they make a sequel, you'll be able to do that. Yay! So let's just take, for example, a hammer. Now, to create an item, you need 2 core components, at least for weapons. Let me double check if that's necessary for armor. I believe that's necessary for armor. Yeah, you have 2 components. Yeah, I'm not sure what they are for armor, generally. But let's just take this hammer, for example. You have the plum, which is kind of a weird name. It's the big smashy bit. You know, you're pretty familiar with that. And then you have the, oh, you gotta pick one, of course. Then you have the shaft, the handle. These 2 are the core components and are required. You sure as hell aren't gonna have a hammer with one without the other. Now after that, once you've upgraded your skill, you can also use these other components. In this case, we have a grip and bindings. So we have all these special effects. Let's just take plus 10% bleeding damage. Kind of shitty for a hammer, I guess. And then we also have plus 5% chance critical hit. Then, of course, you can add in a gem. Different items will take different types of gems because there are different kinds of gems, you know, and they go in different types of gear. So you have weapon gems, which I only have one of, as you can see here, utility gems, and armor gems. I'll get to that in a minute. So now that's pretty much how you craft something. You can skip any of these steps you want except for the core steps. So as an example, let's just make a shitty weapon. Let's take an iron plum and a simple shaft. We're just going to skip all these other components, and now you can see a preview of the item that you're going to make. You can see the rarity that it is given, and its stats and all that. This is not the act. You have not made it yet, though. You have to confirm crafting first. Once you do that, you can name the item, and it will be created, and it will have requirements to wear it set based on its stats. Before making it, you can, of course, compare it to stuff that you have. Why would you repair it? It's not even made yet. It's like negative durability or some shit. Now, like I said, you can add a gem to things. This is important because when blacksmithing an item, you cannot add sockets to it. Which means that if you want to put any sort of gem effects in it, you're going to have to craft that gem directly into the item. What does that mean? It means invest in Sagecraft, bitch. Oh, wrong button. As you can see, I have done just that. This is not a video about Sagecraft, however, so I'm not going to go into details about how Sagecraft works. However, maybe if I feel like it, I'll talk about some effects with... No, I won't. Suck it. Maybe later I'll do a video about Sagecraft. If I feel like it. Next, I'd like to go over the creation of items, or more like getting the components that you want. Let's start by going back to the salvage screen. Now, as you can see here, we've got a few items, nothing special between all of them. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to quick save. This isn't really necessary, but if you want to make sure you get the parts that you want, you're going to want to save or quick save before doing it. That way, if you don't get what you want, you can reload your save. I don't believe that the consoles have a quick save, but on PC, the quick save button by default is F5. The quick load key by default is F9. So we're going to go to the salvage screen. We've quick saved. Now, as you can see, we've got the stuff still. It didn't go anywhere. Okay, well, I didn't mean to salvage that, but I got what I wanted, master sustaining rivets. Now, if you look over here, you can see that it had plus 1.5 health regeneration per second. And being the skilled blacksmith that I am, I recognize that as something that came from... Actually, you know what, I'm just gonna reload the save, because that screen is not good to show this to you from. So this is pretty much what you can expect to go through a lot sometimes if you're trying to get something specific from an item, because sometimes the items can just be really finicky and never give you what you want. Why? Because they don't fucking like you. So, damn it, I did it again. I got more that time. Let's see. Let's just pretend that you're practicing for being really fed up with this. See, what keeps on happening is that I'm clicking this to try to make it stay on screen when it's completely unnecessary, and that just makes me salvage it. As you can see, it has a prefix renewing and a special effect that adds health regen. Now, this is because of a component that it was randomly generated with, which, as you saw before, were those master sustaining rivets. Now, let's just say you want those. What do you think we're going to do? We're going to do this. We got the master sustaining grip. That's real great. So, you know, it can give you that effect on a random item. Like before it was rivets, this time it's a grip. It could be just anything that could have that effect that could be used to build that item. So we've got that. I'm going to quick save again to make sure that I keep that item. And you're going to want to make sure to do that before salvaging any other items, otherwise you might not get that lucky again. So you see here we have a dread scale hood, which is the highest tier of rogue material. After I go over all the other stuff about blacksmithing, I'm going to discuss the tiers of materials for building things, crafting things, whatever you want to call it. Now, as you can see here, this has nothing special about it. It has plus 8% critical hit damage, but that's something you gotta look out for. See, different types of armor, i.e. armor for rogues and armor for warriors, will have special bonuses that come just by default because they're for that class. A lot of rogue gear will have critical hit related stuff like higher damage or chance to do it. You can, of course, tell that it's rogue because it has a finesse requirement. It also has these sockets. We don't have anything in those sockets because, blah, that'd be a waste of our gems. Now let's just say that this is not quite up to par with what you have, but you think you have some components you could use to really make this better. You can, of course, upgrade yourself to some dread scale by simply salvaging this. It won't salvage for some reason. And looks like we didn't get anything worth a damn. A basic grip and a basic trim. So that's gonna add some armor, that's gonna add some health, and they both won't do shit for it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna back out and reload the save for the bazillionth time. This time it's necessary. Gotta open up the forge again, we're just gonna try again. There, we got the dreadscale headdress, we got a basic trim, nothing special else, but we can't expect anything because it didn't have any special effects. So we got that, we're gonna back out, we're gonna quick save. Now, we're gonna go to the craft screen, rogue armor, cap. Now you see here you have you select the base component. Basically it's just gonna be what material you want it to be made out of. However, I'm not sure if I have an example here. I think I have one in one of the other categories of armor. Apparently not. Alright, so cap, dreadscale headdress. We've got the core component, and we're going to need another core component, which is apparently some trim. Now, when you're adding the components, you're going to want to think about what this item is going to be used for, how it plays into your playstyle, all that. If you're blocking a lot, you might want to go for some of these higher block efficiencies. If you don't, maybe you just want some extra armor, resistance to certain types of effects. But for us, let's just, I don't want to use my master rigged trim because I tend to save those sort of things for chests or something. So let's take this basic rigged trim for plus 8 armor. Now I've got some other stuff here. I'm going to just kind of not record this process. Alright, so here we are at the end of the process. I've gone picked out everything that I wanted. Now we're at the part to add a gem. I only have one armor gem, an impregnable gem, which adds plus 35 armor. We're going to go ahead and pick that. Now, as you can see here, just a hood. We have our stats. See, plus 6% experience bonus. Honestly, I'm not sure where the hell that came from. But, who knows? Maybe it's just, maybe that's what Mastercrafted does, but I doubt it. That hasn't happened before. Maybe it has. Oh no, we'll have to look at my other gear. Now, I've added some armor. We've got a total of plus 43 armor, and then some health and mana regen. Now, I could confirm crafting, give it a name. Let's compare it to my other stuff. Now, what I currently have is an item that I won in the arena. It's a unique item called Kentigan's Shadow, so I can't salvage it and try to get any of this stuff from it. But it adds plus 8% critical hit damage. We've got that matched over here. Plus 15% physical damage, plus 10% experience bonus. Those are both advantages over this, and plus 10% gold drops, another advantage. The only downside is that it doesn't really have all that armor or this regen. But personally, I rely a lot on my ability to dodge and kill things before they can kill me. And not only that, but my weapon leeches health. So I'm not too concerned about the armor or the regen or any of that. So to me, this item is currently more valuable. So instead of making this, I'm just gonna cancel, suck my dick. So that's pretty much how this process goes. Next, I'd like to talk about upgrading your gear and saving components. Now, whenever you find a new component or a new material, you shouldn't go around just willy-nilly making new stuff. You gotta make sure you gotta make sure you've got the components that you want and the materials you want and all that. Like, for example, you can see here, I've got these Prismeer Fey blades, which I've named the Reaper blades. Pretty awesome, I think. So we've got some pretty high amounts of damage, physical and piercing. It's important to know what kinds of damage you're dealing when you're trying to pick out bonuses for like increases of certain types of damage. Plus 10% bleeding damage. I use the bleeding debuff on enemies a lot, so I took that. Plus 45 health and mana. We got this fire damage, which is, fire is effective against a lot of enemies, and it was the strongest type of thing I had for this component. And then 15% chance to steal 20 health per hit. Because of this, I very rarely have to be concerned with my health or use health potions. The only times I ever have to do that is when I'm extremely overwhelmed or I'm taking too many hits without leeching enough health, or sometimes during a really big boss. And then plus 7% damage. Now, if I remember correctly, this plus 7% damage was just because it was the best thing I had at the time and could probably be replaced with something better. And just as well, this plus 45 health and mana, this comes from something called, I'm not sure if it's the bindings or the grip or what, but it's a robust whatever. And I know for a fact that this is a greater robust, let's just say grip. But I have master robust grips and bindings and rivets and all that shit. So this could be plus 60 health and mana. So there's that. And not to mention, this probably isn't even a master fire fulcrum. And I can probably get a better percent chance or more health per hit. And I believe I have a component that gives me plus 14% damage. See, this was great when I made it, and it's still pretty effective, but it's not yet as efficient as it could be. Now, I could go and disassemble this, but let's be honest. Look at all these powerful parts. Look at how many of them are. How many of these do I really want to leave out? Probably none, right? Because I don't know how many of them I might still need. Now, this one comes from a gem. You might get that back in a different type of item, but you're definitely not going to get it back in the form of a gem. I can promise you that. On the other hand, we have my bow. As a kind of a counterpart to my Feyblades, it steals mana, regenerates mana, has some poison, all that stuff. But look at this, plus 0.5 mana per second. I have things that give me plus 1.5. This clearly needs to be upgraded. Probably not as badly as the Feyblades though, because it does a lot more damage. Of course, the problem here is finding the important components. If you're trying to stay as on edge as I am, then finding these higher tier components might be an issue. You need to go to places like stores if you want to find these, especially in the big cities, because you're typically not going to find the best stuff from, dungeons and crap at your level. What you're going to want to do is, to make sure you have the most menacing weapons and armor possible, is buy things from stores and then salvage the core components and use those to make a new weapon. Now, that means that I should probably be getting some new stuff before long. I have an ebony limb that I salvaged from a crude Evany Bow, which was... I wish I had an example to show you, but basically, what I'm talking about here is that sometimes the base component of the item is actually stronger than what you might find. I really wish I could do something more interesting to show you while I'm talking about this, but, items... I found a crude ebony bow. Ebony is the highest tier of bow, and see, this is the limb that I salvaged from it. You can see that the base component for this limb has 106 base damage to add to the weapon. The crude ebony bow had 80 damage. You can already see why salvaging things and then putting them back together could be much more effective than using shit that you just kind of found. There's not really much else for me to talk about. So, I'd like to go over the tiers of materials. Now, I'm not going to be reading... no, I am going to be reading. I'm going to be reading these off of a list, so I'm not going to be doing anything interesting for the duration of this, but I'm going to read them off a list of what all the core materials are. So, we've got hides for rogues. In order from worst to best is leather, boiled leather, studded letterman, troll scale, and then dread scale. For cloth, for mages, we have cloth, linen, silk, hexweave, and then spirit weave. Metals, we have iron, steel, azurite, sylvanite, and prismere. Although, something seems to be left out here. If I recall correctly, chainmail is a tier of armor. It is not a tier of weapon, though. So I guess you have that kind of complexity between items sometimes, that maybe there are some tiers of armor that don't exist as tiers of weapons. Then of tiers of wood, we have birch, elm, oak, ash, and ebony. Now, the importance here is that metals will be used in kite shields and warrior armor. Wood will be used in bucklers, which are rogue shields, and they're also going to be used in bows, and staffs, and scepters. And I think that's all they're used in. There might be something else. But then, of course, Prismir, being a metal tier, is of course, what you're going to have on a lot of your weapons, unless they use wood. So as you can see, I've got the, Prismir Feyblades. All the stuff around my level is, Troll Scale. This, I don't even remember where I got this Dread Scale from. I don't even know. But, I think I've gone over pretty much everything I can. I've been kind of meandering around a bit. I've shown you the basics of the skill, the details of salvaging items, how to craft items, what to look for in an item, how to know what you're doing, and how to get the components you're looking for. And I don't really know that there's much else I could teach you, so get out there and go kick someone's ass. Kinda like this. No, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and just keep on murdering people. You guys, go make yourself some weapons of your own. Upon review of the video, I thought I should show you guys something else, so I'm just going to throw this in at the end here. You might notice I took off my gloves. I'm going to go to the salvage screen. Now, here we have the gloves I was using. They're, Trollhide gloves, Trickster's gloves of the elixir. Of the elixir, the suffix, means that it, has this plus 20% poison resistance, but the Trickster's part is indicative of its +1 to finesse abilities, something that I definitely make use of. Of course, however, it's important to note that this +1 to finesse abilities is not something that you can take off of the weapon as a component. Maybe you can, but I've tried, and not just after making the video, but many times in the past, you cannot, at least not in my experience, take these off. Perhaps it's just a really, really rare drop, and I encourage you to try, but at the same time, I encourage you not to waste your time. I also tried disassembling it until I got the mitt, which for some reason seemed very rare, so I took the, the core component, the mitt, the glove part, I took that and I made a new set of gloves, and it did not have the +1 to finesse ability, so it is not like a unique type of mitt either, core component.